Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Xiaoling, and in today's video, I'll be reviewing Firewatch. As with many people, I don't really like the numbering system used for reviews, so you won't find me categorizing games in that way. However, at the end of the video, I will be either giving a recommendation or not recommending the game for purchase. So what is Firewatch? Well, Firewatch is an indie game developed by Campo Santos Studios, published by Panic Inc. It's a narrative-driven first-person adventure game played out across a summer in the Wyoming wilderness in 1989. You play the main character by the name of Henry, who's gotten a job as a forest ranger. The game is very story-driven, so there's actually not too much that I can say without it being a spoiler. It's the type of game that's best experienced without any prior knowledge of what has happened or knowing the plot points or events that are going to happen. Any of these things are going to make the experience far less impactful. So what I am going to do is talk about the graphics, the sound, the voice acting, the game mechanics and things like that. I'll talk about what I can as best I can without providing any spoilers. So let's talk about the graphics first. The game has somewhat of a cartoonish look to it, but don't be fooled by the way it looks. The story and the subject matter is deep and emotional. They even say in the Steam description that this game is about adults having adult conversations, talking about adult things. The entire game takes place in Wyoming National Park over the course of an entire summer, so you'll get to experience it during various times of the day and in various settings. Now, even though the game looks simple, it works. The atmosphere, I thought, was great. There was a good sense of exploring the unknown, always wondering what is going to happen next or what was around the next corner. It was pretty exciting at times. There are different biomes as well, so the scenery isn't always going to be the sort of brown canyon look. You know, there are sections with lots of trees and some dried out sections and things like that. So there is some variation in the look of the game. There was definitely a sense of isolation and solitude, just you out in the big wilderness. The map is quite large, but certain areas are gated off until you get to certain points in the game. So moving on to sound. The sound effects of the wilderness were what you'd expect them to be. The chirping birds and the sounds of the forest. There was music as well, although it wasn't playing all the time. It played at certain points in the story, and I found it to be quite fitting actually. It never felt overwhelming, and always suited the scenes in which it did play. It also provided a nice contrast to the otherwise quiet exploration moments that you had. Now I have to say that the voice acting in the game was absolutely stellar. You know, it's been a long time since I really felt connected to the main characters in any game. It was a pleasure to experience the dialogue in the game and the choices and the conversation that ensued because of those choices. It was witty, it was funny, it was somber. The dialogue was so good and it took you through so many emotions at the different parts of the game. I actually cared about the characters, and by the end of the game I wanted more. I wanted to know more about the characters, I wanted to know more about their lives, and I wanted to know more about what happened after the story concluded. I think they did a fantastic job in Firewatch with that. And here you go, here's an example of what you can expect.
There's some guy out here.
Some guy? Wait, he's looking at you? Is he doing anything else?
I don't think so.
Henry, there's something someone should have told you about this area.
What is it?
It's outside.
Come on.
The whole thing. And people come and go as they please. It's madness.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Look, bumping into someone in the middle of nowhere is part of the fun.
So moving on to the gameplay. As I mentioned earlier, Firewatch is a very narrative-driven story game. It's not a first-person shooter. It's not an adventure game either. It's a tailor-made story with dialogue choices that affect the dialogue that you get to hear as you progress through the game. There is a mystery in the game, and there are secrets to discover that will fill in more of the backstory as well. So some will call it a walking simulator with some story. Its main character though is the dialogue. You're always talking to Delilah, your boss, reporting on various events, whether it's a view or some objects you found in the environment or something else that grabs your interest. You're always using your radio. Now there is a ton of dialogue in the game, and you always have a choice of responses. There is a timer though, so in most situations you probably shouldn't take too long or you'll get to miss the chance to answer. The game is on open world sandbox, even though it may appear so at first. Certain parts of the map will be locked off until you find the objects necessary to traverse those areas. There are some areas that you can go that are off the beaten path, but for the most part it's still a very linear experience. The game was quite short as well. I was able to finish it in around 4 hours. There were a few parts where I wondered what would have happened if I had chosen a different dialogue choice, so I'm left curious to maybe play through it again at some point. So you may have noticed that I'm being relatively vague. You're not getting to hear a lot of story dialogue or seeing any of the events that I keep talking about. But as I mentioned earlier, this game is about that first experience. Playing this game without knowing the story or what happens is where it shines. That first impression, that first reaction, that very first experience. So if you enjoy a narrative-driven, relatively linear experience, then you'll very likely enjoy Firewatch. There is a lot of walking in the game, and if you're someone who's likely to get bored of talking on the radio or walking around just taking in the vistas as the events unfold, this game may not be for you. You walk around or run, climb and talk on your radio as events present themselves. There are a large number of objects that can be picked up and examined but not kept, and some other objects that can be kept and actually appear in your tower as you progress, sort of filling in the backstory if you will. So because I've only played through the game once, I am tempted to play through again, but I don't actually know how much replayability there is going to be here. You could possibly play through the game one more time and see how the different choices you make play out and if they actually affect or change anything in the story. However, in the 4 hours that I played, there didn't seem to be any direct consequences to the choices outside of having different dialogue options or the lack of them. But if I had to find something to nitpick at, I'd like to have seen maybe more events in the game and more things to do as a ranger. There are large sections of the game where it just skips over weeks at a time or many days at a time. It would be nice in those days just to do mundane stuff but still have the conversations. I think it would have put you more into the shoes of the ranger, maybe have you even connect more with the character that you were playing. Outside of that, maybe more things to investigate or even more interesting places to explore. I mean, it could be that I just didn't find those places and I didn't look hard enough. That is also a possibility. So perhaps I did miss out on a few locations. But other than that, the world, although beautiful, felt a little empty at times. Perhaps that was what they were going for, that feeling of solitude. But to me, the wilderness felt kind of devoid of wildlife and a little bit empty. So were there any technical issues with the game? I experienced some performance problems. There were times when the game would stutter and the frame rate was inconsistent, but nothing that prevented me from playing. For the most part, it ran at a solid 60 frames a second. So when it did stutter, it was noticeable and jarring. A recent article I read was saying that players with anything less than quad cores were very likely to experience stuttering, and there was little they could do to alleviate it. I imagine that this is something that can get patched out, but again, I don't think it's game breaking. Well, it's not so bad that it's game breaking at least. There were also a few incidents where I had sounds cut out as well, but that was only once or twice. I never had any crashes and I didn't come across any bugs to speak of. So all in all, I had a great time with Firewatch actually. I don't think it'll be for everyone, but if you're looking for a good story about people and the things they go through, you'll enjoy this game. It's emotional, it's tense, and a relaxing journey all at the same time. Is it an amazing game? I don't think so, but it's good, and it's worth experiencing. It's difficult because how do I describe the game without spoiling it? Hopefully I've done a decent job to give you guys an idea of what the game is going to be like and what you can expect. And depending on what kind of person you are, whether or not you will enjoy this title. So the question is, should you pick this up? Well, if you like what you've heard and what you've seen, absolutely. I think the asking price is a little high for what you get. Perhaps $12 to $15 would have been more reasonable, I think. But honestly, the value of a game is debatable and relative to the purchaser. So it's always a difficult thing to quantify in my opinion. I'm sure there are many who think it is well worth the asking price. But for me, I think $12 to $15 would have been a better suited price for this kind of game and the amount of content that you're getting. What I will say, though, is this. If you fall into the category of people I talked about earlier, don't pass this up. You'll be missing out on what I think is a great experience. Anyways, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the very first review on the channel. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. And thank you very much for your support, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Xiaoling. Until next time. Hey guys, welcome back to the PC import analysis. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at XCOM 2. Sorry for the little bit of a late video. It took a while for my copy to arrive from the store where I bought it. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back to In Perspective, Xiaoling here, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about my impressions of the PC version of The Division beta. So for those of you who don't know what The Division is, it's a third-person cover-based shooter RPG set in a near-future post-apocalyptic.